up so you guys can see. Hello everyone, it's Kimberly and we are back with our broadcast. I'm pretty sure it's close to 8 o'clock. You do probably hear that fan running in the background as it has been a little bit warm in our area, so I am going to run the fan, so hopefully you can still hear me. And maybe I should just check my volume here. Yes, my volume should be good. Just check that real quick. Get my hand away. So you can see I am working on a French Provincial dresser here. And I'll just kind of tilt you down here so you can kind of see her legs. So she has some embellishment on it already. This is just what was natural on this piece. I have some on the corners there as well. All the hardware is original to this piece, and yes, I did paint my hardware. Those of you who know me know that I always paint my hardware. And if you don't, and you are new to this page, I want to welcome you. Thank you for jumping on with us. And my name is Kimberly. I am with Unique Finds and Furniture Designs here out of Kernersville, North Carolina. And I am a Dixie Belle premier retailer. And so the products I feature in these broadcasts are most of the time, mostly Dixie Belle paint products. And sometimes I veer from that depending on what is working for the purpose on the pieces I'm working in. So don't be surprised if you see me use some Bondo and some Nitrostan, some different things like that. I use whatever product it is to give me the best results. And but for the most part, my paint is definitely Dixie Belle chalk paint. Now, when I began this piece, obviously, I always start at the very beginning. So in the very beginning, I always start with our Dixie Belle White Lightning Cleaner. I do spray that on with a mister bottle, and I use a Scotch-Brite in that. I use this, I put like a half a teaspoon in this, which is a little bit strong, but I promise you it'll get the gunk off. And then I use a Scotch-Brite. And the reason is this little green thing, and it's been used a lot, so I use this several times over again. And the reason I use it is because it does three things for me. It cleans it really well. It also deglosses it, and it kind of wet sands it all in one stroke. So a lot of people say, what do you mean you don't have to sand your piece? You don't necessarily have to sand your pieces, but if you clean them with your White Lightning Cleaner and you use a Scotch-Brite, you are basically kind of wet sanding that piece. And it's deglossing it and it's prepping it. And once you do that, you clean it back down with a rag and you are good to go. Let it dry, and then you're good to go to paint. So that's the process I did before painting. I always try to hit on that for the newbies that may be on this page. And also the color combo that I have on this piece tonight. And I will be showing you previous pictures of this French Provincial in our next post on this piece. And I use the Sawmill Gravy, and that is the lighter tone that you're seeing on your screen. And also the Savannah Mist. So these are the two colors that I used. I am going very French cottage country on this piece. It just kind of speaks to me to be that. So I always say when you're cleaning your piece, you'll kind of get a feel for your piece. It'll kind of start coming together in your mind where you're going to go with this piece. And that's why I always never skip the cleaning process, is because it always gives you time to kind of get to know the piece, feel the lines of the piece, and kind of figure out where you want to go with the piece as far as color goes. My door is open a little bit, so it might be having an effect on your color as you're seeing it. So it may look a little bit different in there. It almost looks like vintage duck egg on the screen, but it is not. It is Savannah Mist, so it is a little bit lighter than the vintage duck egg, which vintage duck egg would have been a good choice as well. Hey Mindy, how are you? Thank you for jumping on with us tonight. So I had a lot of questions with our last broadcast, and we were doing and demoing our paste wax. I call this a paste wax. And the only time I really use our paste wax, I don't use our paste wax to seal my projects. I really use the wax to define my pieces, to make some of the defining lines sort of jump out at you and say, hello, look at me. I have some really neat lines here, nice curves. And this hardware is original, like I said earlier in the piece, and I did just paint over it. So for a cottage country feel, I'm probably most likely, hey Karen, how are you? I'm most likely gonna come in and I'm gonna knock this down like I did on the part behind me, and I'll just pull y'all over here and let you just kind of take a look-see at that hardware. So, sorry, I'm hung on something there. So here is the hardware on the piece, and you see some wax going on in there. So one side it looks like just brand new finished project, finished paint I should say, and then the other side you see where I'm adding the detail with the wax. So that is exactly what I'm going to be doing tonight in this live, and I apologize for bobbling you around. I've had a lot of questions from that last one, so I'm going to pull you in close so you can kind of see. You see a lot of lines in this piece, and I'm actually going to accent its natural, I want to say it's natural curves. That's kind of how I look at it. I look at most of my pieces as if they were women, and they got some battle scars, and hey, I'm okay with that. We all have them. Okay, and so if it's something that is structural, I'll fix it. If it is something that kind of just shows the age of the piece and the era of the piece, I don't necessarily try to take all of her imperfections away, because she earned them. And with all due respect, we all sort of earn the rights to have those battle scars, and we all do. So as time goes on, and this piece is very vintage. And I am going to come in here. This is our brown wax, by the way. This is the 10 ounce. I'm using a 10 ounce can. They come in other sizes, 4 ounce. And this will last you a long, long time. So you can see the brown wax in there. And I have this little artesian brush, a little artist brush. But the bristles on this brush are stiff. And I need it to be stiff. It's not real pliable. It's a stiff brush. And that's what I use to get in all these little curves. And you'll see that as they kind of come into play as I go around doing this piece. So I'm just going to jump right in with you guys and kind of give some of those that were asking some questions. Do you have to seal your piece before you apply your wax? You don't have to. I don't necessarily. It probably would make it easier on you if you're new to it. And our wax does tend to bond with this chalk paint, because the chalk paint is just that, it's chalky, so it will grab your wax. But I wanted to grab my wax. I never put any sealant or anything on it prior to adding a transfer or putting my wax on. I always do that so that my chalk paint will absorb it and grab it, and when it dries overnight, it's going to stay. So you can do this in multiple ways. You can do this with wax, or you can do this with clear wax and Dixie dirt, and accomplish the same sort of look that I'm going to be happening here tonight. So those are a couple of other projects, and you have to forgive me. I think I broke a couple of toes yesterday, so I'm leaning on them, and they are not happy with me. So, but I'm going on anyway. And so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to come in here and kind of show you again. Just to let you know, this is Sawmill Gravy. That is the lighter tone, and the blue color tone is the Savannah Mist. But with this piece, I'm kind of wanting to give it a cottage country feel, French Provincial cottage country feel. And to do that, I'm going to bring it old world style. So that would, where this wax comes in to play, to kind of show you. So I do have also with me tonight is my handy dandy baby wipes. And I also just have like a t-shirt material that you could also use. Sorry, hold on one moment. I have somebody trying to bust in my door. And I am going to let you in. Sorry about that. Carly's slamming in, coming in through the door, coming in like a rocket, coming in for landing. So I'm going to pull you in close. You're not necessarily going to be seeing me, but you're going to be seeing how this goes on, and that's the whole idea, to show you how I kind of get the look I want to get. So I am going to come in here with my wax right now. Again, this is the brown wax, and it's I call it paste wax, and it's a little bit stiff. It's a little stiffer on the edges than it is in the center. I've had it for a long time, and a lot of times I'll take my cap and I'll kind of tamp it off, again with that word, just kind of tamp it down. And I'm gonna come in, as you can see, I don't have an absolutely perfect paint line there. That was intentional. I did it so that I could come in with this wax and kind of make this show the contour of this with my brush. So you're gonna kind of see how this is going to just kind of jump out and say, oh, hello. Now you'll see the curves and the design of this piece as we go along. Yes, it is a little time consuming. That is part of the deal. It's time consuming. That's why these pieces don't just jump out of the workshop here. They do take time, and I just kind of like adding that little added bit of flair to my piece. So I'm just going to drag this, and the reason I have my baby wipes is because I'm going to use my baby wipes again to clean it up. Now you could have put clear wax in here first and then come in with your brown wax, and the clear wax would have prevented it from staying where you don't want it. But in my case, I'm going to use my baby wipes to pull it back off. So you could use clear wax, and some people have asked me, do you clear coat satin on your piece before you put your wax on? You very well can, if you're afraid that you might get it somewhere you don't want it. But your baby wipes generally are pretty good, and they'll pull it back off for you for the most part. So in my case, I'm not concerned about it. But if you are, just go ahead. You can put your clear wax in there. You don't have to, like I say. You just got to kind of get in here. Right now what I'm doing is I'm just kind of, as you can see, I'm just kind of tracing as if you were, when we were kids, tracing our, and outlining your color page. If you were doing a color page, you know, some of us would trace in a darker color, do a little darker on the edge, and then kind of paint, or I should say color lightly inside. And so that's kind of the same idea here, but I'm just going to kind of get it on, and I'm not worried about my paint drying, or my wax drying too soon, because it does take a little while for your wax to set up. So, but you can kind of see how it's defining the lines. So I did this first, the inner line, and then I'm going to go on and I'm going to do this outline here, because this kind of is the line of this drawer. It has such unique lines to this piece, but it's because it's a French Provincial. And like I say, don't worry if you feel like you're getting it a little bit over. Knock some of that off. I'm just going to outline this drawer so you guys can kind of see in this broadcast. I'm sorry if my head is in your way. So just bringing it in. See how that piece just curves? It's really, really beautifully. This beautiful workmanship, I should say, on this piece. You know, nowadays people are... It's so easy to buy furniture that just is kind of lasts only a certain length of time, and then it's like it's built to be, I feel like built to be thrown away so that you can get another piece. I don't know. But these pieces, in the day that this piece was built, this is such beautiful. I can even show you inside this drawer. Look how gorgeous. So 3 dividers in here. The craftsmanship that's inside this is unbelievable, and it's like brand new, solid piece. And the reason it is because of the way it was built and the craftsmanship that was put into these pieces. It's very hard to find pieces in today's world where craftsmanship is what I want to say. It shows up in the work that's being done anymore. Especially when things are manufactured in such a way, in such a hurry. Most of it's MFD wood, which is microfiber density wood, and that's not sometimes that's not necessarily built to last forever. A lot of IKEA furniture is microfiber density board, and not actually solid wood, real solid wood like this is. But anyway, it serves the purpose. So I'm still coming along this edge here, and I just did some cabinets in Madison that were microfiber wood board, and they are beautiful. So you can work with that product. The one thing that is, it's a hardy product. It lasts, when you laminate over the top of it, you know, it lasts for a while because it doesn't get wet. The key to microfiber density wood board is not to get it wet. And so a lot of the IKEA furniture that you see out there has a laminate top. That's why it has a laminate top, so that density board doesn't get wet. So there's all kinds of furniture in the world, but I really like this old style. And I'm gonna make this old world. So you see, I'm just kind of talking to you as I'm just coming along this dresser and outlining all around. So I'm just outlining all around this natural. My husband out there, I was out there helping him today in the woods on some broken pieces of equipment. So when I'm not doing this, it is what it is, right? Just do a little bit of everything. Okay, so I'm just basically showing you just getting it on. Hopefully you can see where I've come in and I've outlined that. Sorry if I bobbled you. And I'm going to show you how I clean it up and then kind of give it an old, even though it's brand new paint, I'm going to knock it back. Very similar to the piece I did the other day, but on a lighter scale, let's say. I've got my baby wipe here, and it doesn't matter what kind. This is sensitive baby wipes. Normally I just buy Food Lion brand, whatever brand, doesn't matter to me what kind I use. And I'm gonna come in here and I'm just gonna kind of rub my finger here and kind of clean up that line. See, I want it to look kind of old and worn. So that's the goal we're going for with this wax. So you can see, you can pull it back all the way back off if you want and do a little bit different if you feel like sometimes I feel like I pull too much off and I go back in and put more in. So I'm just gonna come in here and drag my baby wipe along the edges. Because remember, I'm doing kind of an old world, give this more of a vintage vibe, Victorian, very Victorian feel with this piece. And since the piece already screams Victorian, I'm going to, and Victorian, cottage, country, very French Provincial. Obviously, it's a French Provincial. So you see how I'm just kind of knocking that line back, but it's kind of creating some depth and character to the piece. And when I'm doing that, I am just kind of moving my wet wipe around, called a wet wipe. I'm just kind of moving it around, and when it's dirty, I move to a dry, clean spot, or a damp, clean spot. And remember, you can take it all the way off if you want to, or you can just knock it back to the level that you want to see it. And so that's what I'm doing. I'm just kind of coming in here and knocking it back so it's not, and see, you can kind of see it on the paint here. So I'm going to find a spot and we'll just kind of come in. See how you can just kind of come in and pull it right off your paint if you don't want it on your white. In this case is sawmill gravy. And I am just simply coming in here and knocking it back. And we'll come in this angle. So that's what I'm doing. I'm just keep moving it to a clean spot on here. My husband working out there. So you can kind of see how I'm doing. I'm just kind of pulling it back, working it in where I want it, leaving it where I want it. Now, a lot of times I'll take what I call this dirty area and I'll dirty up or darken up so it looks more vintage. So I'm kind of knock down that new, stark new look because I want it to look vintage. So I'm going to move it here to where I have some of my wax. I'm just going to kind of dirty up my edges a little bit. That's what I was doing with that other piece. I'm gonna dirty up my blue a little bit so it looks worn and weathered. That's the look I'm going for. Even though it's brand new fresh paint, I want it to look like it's still that old vintage piece that you may find in one of these antique stores. So this is how I'm just kind of antiquing it out, vintaging it out. Now I am debating on my hardware whether I'm just going to sand it down and just kind of leave it like I did over here and just kind of make it look worn. You can also come in here and dry brush another color over the top of your hardware and kind of make it a two-tone. You could add some blue to it, or just whatever your preference is. I just kind of have something in my head that I was planning on working on with this piece, so I'm just going to kind of run with it, with the idea that I'm just making this more of a French cottage feel, French country cottage. And so I'm just kind of adding a little bit of my brown wax from my rag, hey Kayla, and I'm adding some of that wax into this French Provincial piece. Kayla, this looks a little like some of your grandmother's furniture and that you have in storage actually. This is very similar to that design. So I'm just coming in here and creating an old world worn look. So I don't know if you can see how it's just kind of wearing. I put my brown wax in. I'm gonna put some more up here and show you kind of wearing my blue and giving it, oops, sorry guys, I bobbled you there. Kind of giving it a worn effect. So you can kind of see where I've rubbed some of the paint. That's why I did one coat coverage. This is one coat of Savannah Mist and one coat now of my Sawmill Gravy. And the reason I did that is so that when I washed it back, and since this is water-based paint, I would come in and just kind of knock a little bit of that paint off as well, which would even make it look more worn. But that's the effect I'm going for. So if you don't like that effect, then this probably isn't the technique you want to use on your piece. But this is what I'm using. I'm using Dixie Belle's Best Dang Paste, I call it paste wax, Best Dang Wax, and this is the brown. Now the other night we were using the black. Tonight I'm using the brown. And I want it though. You want them all. She loves my French Provincial furniture. So this is the brown wax, and I've got this little artist brush. It's a stiff little brush though. So it's got stiff little bristles in it, if that makes any sense. It's not one of those real pliable ones, but it's excellent for applying wax. So I use it, I clean it out, and I use it for my brown and my black wax. So I'm going to come in here, so you can't really see those defining lines until you come in here with your wax. And I could have just left it this. It's beautiful the way it is as far as the paint goes. But anybody that knows me knows I got to add another notch to it. You know, I got to kick it up a notch, right? So we're going to kick it up a notch as one of my favorite Guy Fieri. He's always kicking it up a notch, right? So I'm going to kick it up a notch. So now I'm just kind of wiping it back. Apologize, I know you hear the dog. But see how that brown wax is staying in the grooves? It's staying in there, and I want it to stay in. Because once it dries in there, now like I said, you can do the same technique with the Dixie Dirt. Just use clear wax and put your Dixie Dirt in, and you can pull it up, rub it off with your baby wipe just like I'm doing. So now let's jump down here to this next drawer. So you guys, hopefully you can see. And I'm just gonna jump in here because this technique, I know our waxes, some people are afraid to use them because they will grab your chalk paint because this is chalk paint. But in this case, I want it to grab and hold where I want it to be. If you're afraid and you're new at it, you can use clear coat satin on this, let it dry overnight, and then come in with your wax. It'd be easier for you to pull it back out if you're new at, and just practice. Practice on something that you're not, you know, all that fearful of putting the wax on. So I know you can't see me, but hello. And I'm just gonna come in here and I'm gonna show you how I pulled the lines out in this piece. So, and to define this natural craftsmanship that was going on this piece back in the day. And I just want people to be able to see the beauty in this. So I am going to pull it out with this wax. It's just, for me, I think it's easier to pull it out. Now I'm coming on the top because now if you wanted to, you could come in here and you could paint this top piece right in through here. You could add a whole nother element to it by painting inside those lines if you wanted to. For my purpose, I'm not going to because I want this very old world style. So I'm just coming in here. You can see I wasn't overly careful with getting the perfect lines with the paint because I knew I was going to come in here and dirty those lines up a bit. So I'm not real concerned about it. Can you guys still see? You can see how it's going on. So I love how these drawers, look at those curves. And you don't even really see them when you're just looking at the piece until you start doing and adding your wax in. So I'm just coming in here and I'm just gonna add the wax. Because this wax, now you could have done this with black as well, but the reason I color this has some brown tones to it, so that's why I'm doing it like that. So if you got any questions for me, you guys just holler out at me. Send me a shout. I'm hoping that I'm addressing some of the questions that we had in our last broadcast. Had a lot of people really respond to the wax and adding this kind of old world style to their pieces. And your French Provincial pieces are wonderful for that. They really are. You can really set the tone with them. And this one has some beautiful detail at the bottom. Let me pull you back a little so you can kind of see that. You can kind of see the floral detail at the bottom. And yeah, you can probably see my two bad toes. You can probably see them too. They're beet red. Or actually, they're purple now. So I got purple toes now. They're fine until I bend them. That's when they hurt. So that's what I told my husband. They only hurt if I prop them up. If I'm walking, they're fine. You see how I got that on the blue? I'm going to be able to get that off. And I'll show you guys how I can do that. Let me pull you up a little closer so you're seeing what I'm doing here. And not all my background, my table with all my work and stuff on it. I have a table here that holds all of my different pieces. So let's see, let's go along this edge. So it is a little bit time consuming. A lot of times that's why I take my time with my furniture because they're one-of-a-kind pieces. I try to put one-of-a-kind pieces out. I don't try to just throw them in and throw them out. When I get my pieces, I really want them to be unique, and that is my goal. So I am getting it a little dirty because I want to dirty up my blue. I don't want my blue to look so stark and obviously brand new, even though it is brand new. Just bringing this piece into the new millennium, if you will. And these pieces are very dated. You probably saw, maybe if you guys are following me, you may have saw the beginning picture at the first of the week saying that we were about to get started on this project. So I'm going to do this drawer and then I'm going to finish up and let you all go. And hopefully you guys will just have an awesome time playing in and experimenting with your waxes. I think sometimes they don't get used because a lot of times people just are afraid to jump in the boat and use them. And that's why I did this broadcast. Just kind of show you. See how easy you can just kind of clean up that wax. I just took it right off of there with a baby wipe. And this was a used baby wipe. So I'm just going to come in here and take this again and pull it across. I really ought to get me a new one because that one's pretty used up. So baby wipes are handy. And I'm just going to come in here and I'm just going to kind of clean. And then you saw what I just did, right? You saw that I turned it. So I got a little dirty on there. So I'm going to turn it. And I'm going to pull again. It's all your preference. And I'm just kind of pulling the wax back. I'm just going to pull it back. So it's not anything. If you wanted it pulled back all the way, yes, go ahead and put you some clear wax on there. That would help you if you're really just wanting it only in very detailed. You can still come in with your baby wipe and watch. I'll just kind of come in here. You can come in with this baby wipe and you can pull it all completely back off if you wanted to. That's not what I want to do here, but you can, just so that you know you can. So don't be frightened to jump in and use some wax. Yes, chalk paint does grab the wax, but if you have your baby wipes, you can do it. You see how easy it is. I'm just showing you right here exactly how I'm going around, kind of cleaning it up. And then I'll go on this end. Just rotate your rag around. If you're using a baby wipe, just rotate it around. And then I will pull back what I want to pull back, and then I'm gonna kind of dirty up my paint, if you will, like I showed you earlier on this top one. So I'm just gonna keep going. A lot of times I'll pull it off and then I'll come back in and add a little bit more wax and leave it. So, but for this video, I'm not gonna hold you guys up all night. I just wanna show you, again, some tips and tricks when you are using the paste wax, the color wax. And we have black, we have brown, we have grunge gray, we have clear, and we have white. So we have a plethora of colors to kind of experiment with. White would be really good on this blue. So you could come in here with some white in here on this blue and kind of vintage the blue out, if you will. And so here I'm turning my rag and I have a little bit of this wax on here, as you guys can see. And I'm just gonna kind of come in here and hope to rub some of it off into my sawmill gravy. So what that's doing is kind of dirtying it around, kind of dirtying it up, which is what I want to do. I want it to look vintage. I don't want people to really be able to hardly tell that it was actually recently painted. Sometimes that's a real good way to know when you're, for a lot of people, when you're doing vintage furniture, for it to not even hardly look like it was redone, but yet look brand new. So this is how I kind of accomplish that. So I'm using the dirty part of this wax and getting my vintaging out my paint. So kind of antiquing your paint, if you will. It kind of gives it an old world kind of look. So you see how my blue has got the overlapping of that light brown in it. And I will add some more wax back here because I don't like how far I took it down. So you just kind of add where you want it. Just kind of rub it in and let it kind of be where you want it to be. And then I'm going to come in and dirty it up a little. See, on that edge. Because this, I want it to look worn, but I still want it to be kind of new. So just kind of walk it back. So your baby wipes are your friend, just like I said when you're using your water bottle. Your water bottle, when you're blending, is your friend. You're working with water-based paint, and don't be afraid to keep your paint. Keep your paint line moist and wet, because that's kind of the key when you are blending. Even if I'm painting here and my paint is drying fast, I will spray my brush to keep that line from happening. So this is how I kind of create that old world look on this French Provincial piece. So there you have it, guys. And if you wanted to, you could come in here with some sandpaper and you can knock back your hardware. Let me see, I know I have a little piece right here. If I can get up with my sore toe. Yikes. Yes, pressing on them is when it hurts. So I have a little sandpaper here. This is 100 grit. You don't need anything that rough, to be honest with you. You can just come in here and you can just kind of knock down the high points. Just kind of show you while we're live. You just kind of vintage your hardware out. I always paint my hardware. I don't know, it just makes it look more vintage to me when you do that. It gives it more of a authentic sort of look and feel, especially when you're doing this old world vibe on this. Obviously, this is not a mid-century modern piece, and so obviously I want to keep it very vintage and very cottage country. So, and that's how I kind of just knock off some of my paint, let a little bit of the natural hardware show. If you don't like that, you can come in and dry brush over it. You could even wax over the top of it. Over here, I did put some gilding wax on it, and then I didn't like it, so I'll come back in with a little paint and then distress it again to get the look I want. So feel free to experiment with the products. There's no wrong way to do any of it. I'm just going to continue on waxing my way throughout this project. So I want to thank you for joining us tonight. Hope you all have a blessed evening, and hopefully we'll see you back here on Thursday, or we'll share another video of our broadcast, previous recorded one on Thursday. Hope to see you guys soon. Thank you so much for joining us, and hope you all have a blessed night. Bye for now, guys.